Bless his heart.
She was needing to see
How's
that
everybody
thing.
doing today? That sounded kind of weak. I said, how's everybody doing today?
Good.
This is a little different seminar now. This is an interaction seminar. This is not your I'm going to tell you what to throw in the tank. This is I'm going to tell you what not to throw at Lake Gunnersville. There you go. Before anybody asks, yes, I threw a rattle trap at Lake Gunnersville. Before anybody asks what happened, I don't really know. If I did, I'd have changed it immediately when it happened. It was a bad day for me. And that's what we learned from bass fishing. They talked a little bit about it last night. You know, I can come today and talk about rods and reels, and, you know, yeah, it's great that I'm fishing with quantum rods, and I got the quantum reels, and I've got Sunline, and I've got a Triton boat, and I've got all that good stuff. That's what it's all about. The most important thing in any bass fisherman's boat, what do y'all think it is? There's only one thing in every boat that separates the first guy from the 100th place guy.
Brain.
The guy.
It's what between the ears. That's all it is. You either got it right that day or you don't. At Lake Gunnersville, maybe I didn't have it right. Maybe you overthought it. So what I'm here today to talk to you about is, yeah, jig fishing, kind of A to Z, different color jigs, how to select them. But I promise you I can make you a better fisherman by making you understand what your mind's thinking is what's going on the water. I wear a bracelet right here on my arm. It's called PMA. Anybody know what that stands for? Positive mental attitude. Always. It's written initials on one side, letters on the other. Only place you can get them is at my house. You know why? Because I struggle to keep a positive mental attitude. And it doesn't matter if you're fishing or you're managing the fishing tackle department at Bass Pro Shop. If you're a negative person, negative things usually happen to you, correct? Anybody got any friends that when you go fishing, everything they do is negative? They talk about how they're not going to bite before they get there. The water's too cold, the water's too hot, there's too many jet skiers, I left my worms, my wife's mad at me, we should just go home. You know there's a game on at 4 o'clock. Well, if you felt that way, you shouldn't even went fishing. When you go fishing, you got to be the guy that thinks they're going to bite at all times. I've been helping a young kid for about 2 years now, mentoring him, trying to get him into bass fishing. He's always wanting to go practice with me. And we were going fishing the other day, and the day before we went, we caught maybe 30 or 40 bass. We go the very next day, and we fish about 3 hours, and we hadn't caught one. And I can see it on his face. It's just bleeding out on him. And he finally says it. He says, man, I don't believe they're biting. I said, stop right there. I promise you if there was a tournament today, it'd take 20 pounds to win. You have to be the guy that says they're biting every day. Never tell yourself they're not biting. That's bull malarkey. You ever been to a pizza joint and nobody come in to eat the buffet? Think about it. Somebody's eating somewhere every day. See, I'm the guy at the pizza joint. You ever go by the Chinese buffet and it's empty? Nope. There's always somebody with a plate standing in line. Some days there may be more feeding there than others, but they're always biting. And that's the way we have to look at bass fishing. We can't let the negative mindset of, oh, the weather's tough, there's been a tournament here before. If you can think of 10 reasons that they're not biting, I can think of 10 reasons you probably shouldn't go. Because you've already defeated yourself prior to getting there. So anybody here guilty of this whole kind of, I've been a little too negative, too fast? You can raise your hand. This ain't alcohol meeting. I'm not asking if you drink too much. I'm just asking if you've been negative some. That's the biggest difference when it comes to bass fishing. I can sit down and show you the top 100 anglers in the world, and I can watch on paper, and I can show you the guys that keep it right up here 99% of the time. We're not saying you're not going to have a bad day. I'm not saying I'm asking you to be Superman, because you're going to have days where you fish the home lake of Lake Gunnersville and you catch one bass. Those are the days you just got to man up and say, I got whooped. I mean, I've seen some really great prize fighters get knocked out in a 30-second fight. You ever seen that? They get up and have to show him who hit him on the screen. He goes, which one of them hit me? Well, that's the way I felt when I left Gunnersville. I got outside. I said, I'm not sure which one of them hit me, but I think they all did at the same time. Some days is not your day. You have to move forward. Don't let that bad day of fishing drag on to the next day. If you look back at last weekend and say, we didn't catch them last weekend, we're probably not going to catch them this weekend, you probably just set yourself up for some type of failure. Be the guy that's always positive. Anybody here know any super positive people that no matter what happens, they always think? Got one guy in the back. So I know one guy that's the most positive guy I've ever met in my life. And I probably could let y'all guess till dark and nobody guessed who it is. But he's an Elite Series angler. It's Kevin Van Dam. No matter what the scenario, Kevin Van Dam will never say nothing negative. He will never say nothing negative against somebody. And he never thinks that the fish are not biting. And when I've roomed with him, I've traveled with him, it's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Him and I were joking this year. How you doing today? Come on, watch the fish. They nice. I know what you're thinking. That big one in there is going to bite. You're right. As soon as they turn these lights out, I'm going to take him with me. Take him out. I've been kicked out of Bass Pro Shop for fishing in the tank. It ain't a good thing, but I've done it. Kevin and I are rooming together, and the short story was this year we're hanging out, and I said, man, you got them lucky cookies that he's always bragging about? I said, the bite's kind of tough. I said, I want one of them lucky cookies. So that morning, we fixing our sandwiches, drinking coffee together. He said, here's your lucky cookie. Well, that tournament was over that day, and me and him both just barely squeaked out a check. I mean, we were like 38th and 40th. And I said, daggone, Kevin, I said, them cookies wasn't too lucky, was it? He said, look at it like this. If you wouldn't have had them cookies, what we would have caught? That's the difference. He never doubted his cookie wasn't lucky. He doubted that if he didn't have it, I mean, it's a whole mindset. So when you change how you think on the water, you change what you put in the live well. I know that sounds so irrelevant, but it is the most gospel truth you'll ever preach in bass fishing. You either think it and you do it. If you think negative, you are negative. You think positive, you catch more. The hardest thing to do is come off a bad day and go to the next day. Everybody agree with that? You got to do it. Who was the most famous home run hitter in the first 40 years of Major League Baseball?
Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth. Who led the Major League in strikeouts?
Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth. You got to hang it out there every now and then and get slapped down to say you're the best. So sometimes when you go fish a club tournament, it may be on your local lake and you may not catch them. It doesn't mean you're not the best on that lake. It means you just didn't catch them that day. So don't let one day of fishing try to define what you're doing in fishing or who you are in your club or the BFL or even the Elite Series. Don't let it affect you. When you leave the water that day, leave it with it. Don't carry it home. If you didn't catch them, don't go home and be mean to the dog and talk ugly to your wife. Because she didn't tie on none of your spinnerbaits and she didn't make any decisions. It's irrelevant to her why you didn't catch them. I can tell y'all this from experience. Don't get in the truck on an hour and 40-minute drive and tell your wife why you didn't catch them, because she don't really want to hear it. All she said is, you got an hour and 40 minutes and you weigh in and you need to get a smile turned around here pretty quick, mister. So be responsible for our decisions on the water. So there we go. That was my mindset of the day. We all agree? Yeah. Even a young lady with a pretty pink shirt on, she said absolutely. That's how I think about it, young lady. I think different. If in case y'all don't know that, I operate a little different. If you're ever on my Facebook page, I'm a little out there. I don't take life real serious. Anybody here agree with that? Anybody here take life real serious? Why? We all in line to die. Some of us may be closer to the front than you and me. But I ain't gonna be so mad I can't enjoy every day. I see guys fishing down the bank, they look like they ready to fight. Just staring at the water and the rod, just looking at everybody mean. Why? The fish ain't gonna ambush you. He ain't gonna drive by out from under the dock and kill you. You just gonna fish on down the bank. To weigh in, you gonna go home. It's just fishing, have a good time with it. I'm the guy that wants to enjoy every day. Whether I'm in an Elite Series or whether I'm in the Bass Pro Shop in Broken Arrow or Broken Bone or Oklahoma City or wherever I land at, I'm going to have a good time to a certain extent. I'm not going to be the guy that walks around mad at the world. I see them at the weigh-ins, boy. People don't catch them. Woo-wee! There's some mad people in the parking lot. And then you got the two guys that did catch them. Woo! They talking to everybody. You know them two guys that won't leave when they catch them, just stand out in the parking lot until they start sweeping up. Woo! Anybody want to talk fishing? I'm like, where was you last week when you didn't catch them? You left early. You left early. So we got that in the Elite Series. We laugh about that. We got a few that when they catch them, they stay in there another couple of days. The event will be over. They'll be hanging out in town. How y'all doing? I try to be the guy that's even keel. So we're going to work on that some. We'll talk a little bit about jigs. Anybody here like jig fishing? Yes. Jig fishing to me is the biggest way to get paid off quick. If you can most of the time just be disciplined enough to throw a jig. I have people say that I'm confused about jig fishing. Here's my simplicity of jig fishing. You ready for this? I throw a black one and I throw a brown one. They don't bite the brown one, I throw the black one. And they quit biting the black one, guess which one I throw? The brown one. That's it. And every now and then I get real freaky in the mornings and I swap the chunks on them just to make myself think different. Fish bite a black and brown jig anywhere you go. Now there's 1,000 colors on the shelves of Bass Pro Shop. They all look good and they'll all work. But I try not to complicate how I think, because I'm a very simple, well, I'm a very dumb guy if you really get to know me. I didn't go very far in school. I mean, I smoked PE. I was a straight A student in PE. But after that, it was a slowly decline in my descent. I dated a girl that went to college for about 2 weeks. It's as close as I got to college. So I try to keep things in my boat pretty simple. You know, when I throw a spinnerbait, I throw a white chartreuse, or a clear shad color. There you go. I got 3 sacks of them. It takes 2 grown men to tow them in the boat. That's what I'm going to throw. When it comes to jig fishing, I throw a black and blue jig, a black and blue skirt. I couldn't find a brown one over here out of the pack on the booyah, but I throw something that's brown, green pumpkin trailer. Always. Somebody asked me yesterday, said if you could fish the rest of your life and you had to pick one bait, what would it be? I said, easy decision. 3/8 ounce brown jig with a green pumpkin chunk. Take me from California to Maine. I don't care. I will eventually catch one on that. Now, last week, it was a rarity at Gunnersville that there was one that did not want to bite that. I was just as shocked as you are, because I throw my jig in there and I said, I know I'm going to catch one. And when they didn't bite the brown one, I said, let me throw the black one, because that's the one they own. That's a rarity. But there's white jigs, there's swim jigs. Yeah, there's times out there when the fish are, if you're having a big shad spawn, yeah, you're going to throw a white jig and swimming around boat docks and swimming around grass. But 99% of the time, I'm throwing a black or a brown jig. It's funny, when I stay with Big Show, I'll come in and he'll say, you get any bites? I said, I had about 20 bites. He said, let me guess, on a brown jig. Yep, on a brown jig. The water's muddy, and then that's when I break that black one out. I get all crazy with them. But the simplicity of jig fishing, I don't spend as much time worried about the color as I do the location. Where am I throwing the jig at? You can hunt, and you can be a great hunter and never kill a giant deer. Y'all believe that? If a 180-inch deer don't live where you hunting, I don't care how hard you hunt, how much you spray on, doe pee, buck pee, dog food, cat food, it don't matter. If he don't live there, you can't kill him. You can hunt day and night. I've heard people say, I just know there's a big one in there. I said, you ever got a picture of him? No, but I know he's there. You keep thinking that way. He ain't Bigfoot. Now, I know that there's a TV show called Finding Sasquatch, and nobody's seen him yet. You ever noticed that? How dumb they got to be. How many trail cameras do you think Bass Pro Shop has sold in its lifetime? 40, 50 million? Not one picture of a Yeti on one yet. But there's a dude wearing a spray-painted hat eating Oreos telling me the Sasquatch slept right here in this sage field. No, son, you need to quit smoking that stuff. Because I promise you, if Sasquatch lived in Alabama and Oklahoma, we'd be done shot one and mounted him. The rednecks where I live would shoot him, put him in the back of the truck, drive him through town and blow the hair off of him. He don't exist. Jig fishing, if you're not fishing a lot of time where big fish live, you're not going to catch them. It doesn't mean you're not a great jig fisherman. It means focus more on where you're throwing the bait at and not worry about so many different colors. If this bait's presented right, you're going to get bites. Are you going to get as many bites as a guy throwing a worm? Nope. You're not trying to. You're trying to catch big fish. Last year, the Southern Open at Smith Lake, I'm sitting in 4th or 5th place going in the last day. I draw my co-angler out of the back of the boat, and he's all jacked up on Mountain Dew, asking me 100 questions. He said, what we going to do tomorrow? I said, we're going to throw a brown jig and brush piles. He said, what we going to do if that don't work? I said, we're going to throw a black jig back in them same brush piles. He said, is that it? He said, you got a backup plan? I said, yeah, I'm going to throw a brown jig in them brush piles in case you didn't hear me good. I'm going to keep moving the boat around and throwing this. I'm only looking for 5 bites. This gentleman, he said, what do you want me to do? I said, you can tap dance, hula hoop, throw a worm, I don't care. I'm throwing that jig in them brush piles. I don't care if you catch 100. We get out there, I said, if you put a worm on, you'll catch 5. He caught his limit real quick. He said, what you going to do? I said, I'm going to throw a brown jig in them brush piles. I'm very committed to knowing that's how I can win on that lake. Now, I didn't catch enough to win that day. I did stick 2 fish. It could have been a game changer, but you have to be disciplined. When you pick this bait up, don't pick a jig up thinking you're going to throw it 2 minutes and put it down and become a better jig fisher. If you're struggling to learn how to fish a jig, the fastest way to learn it, take everything out of the boat with 2 jig rods and a box of jigs. Go to the lake and make yourself throw it. I don't care if it's summertime, wintertime. I ain't done that good ice fishing in it. I've tried it. It's slow. But any other time of the year, if you'll throw this jig long enough, you're going to get bites. Once you get bites, you establish confidence. Once you get your confidence up, it becomes a positive mental attitude that you can catch them on a jig. Only thing that sorts out a good jig fisherman from a bad jig fisherman, one believes in it, one don't. Some people still looking for Sasquatch. I'm not. I'm that guy. I don't believe in storage wars neither. Y'all ever watch that show? What's up with that moron hollering, yep? Wouldn't you like to punch him in the neck one time right in the middle of it? Yep, right out. And how come they buy like units every night on the show and the same 4 dudes buy all the same units? Anybody not look at that and say, huh? And they get to uncovering it under the newspapers like a 1971 Corvette worth of $500,000. Come to Alabama and buy a storage unit that's been abandoned and tell me what you find. Some dirty diapers and a 2-wheel tricycle. There's a reason they didn't come back and get it. It's junk. And when I watch that on TV, I'm thinking, only in San Francisco can they buy a storage building that's got $500,000 worth of stuff in there. And it's amazing that the guy that finds the dollhouse from the 1400th century, when he discovers it, he just happens to know all about it. I'm the guy that watches TV and go, really? Of course, I'm the guy that watches Amish Mafia and gets tickled. Anybody ever watch that show?